Someone asked me, "What do you make of all the folks who in the New Age world?" First of all, you can't overgeneralize and say New Age, but they're pointing to folks who are really enamored with the materialism, like wearing certain things or believing certain things around anything. And people will say to me, "What do you think about that? Where does that fit into what you talk about?" The way I see it is we're lulled into thinking spirituality is one thing, and then come to find out it's nothing like what we thought. I think we're lulled into thinking that we can get something from spirituality. Yes, we want to be free of suffering. That might pull us in, but because the ego is still very strong at that stage, we're still looking for something, let's be honest, and we may not even own up to it. What we're looking for is generally who we are. We're looking for what we are. We're looking for ourselves. I get that. But the real truth is shocking. The real truth of it all is very shocking. So when I look at the folks in that kind of new age enlightenment thing, I realize they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. They're at that stage, wherever they're at, they're believing certain things, they're wearing certain garb, because at that stage, that's what they think spirituality is. And it is. That's what it is. At that place, they're not doing anything wrong, is what I'm saying. Nothing. Everybody and everything is exactly where they're supposed to be from here. People will say the same thing about 12 step. Scott, they're still believing all this stuff. What do you think about that? Well, I have some opinions of it, but it's not for me. But they're exactly where they're supposed to be. I remember being in the 12 step, and I'm not saying people in the 12 step don't have a good sense of what spirituality is. I'm telling you, this is how I did it. And not just 12 step, other previous. Just fit this into your own life and you'll relate to me. It's like, didn't you start out believing a bunch of stuff? First of all, just believing a bunch of stuff. And there was no shortage of people in the 12 step program, for example, who gave me stuff to believe in. And that's what I thought it was about. So I believe this, I believe that, I believe in spiritual principles, um, using the mind essentially to create some illusion, really, of spirituality when really what it is more like identification with some spirituality mixed in. But I don't even mean that in a derogatory way. I just mean, can we call it for what it is and then be okay with it? So what I see in those other forms of spirituality is that not yet have they come to realize that a lot of that putting attention on these beliefs and these rituals and this garb and this garment and all that is just like the ego's attempt to still have some sense of self in spirituality. It's just an attempt to hold on to me. And in that way, it's so innocent, and then there's no look, if I'm against any of that, really, what does that have to do with anything? Why do I care? Why do you care? That's what I'm interested in is not just what are people doing at that level of spirituality, but what is one's view of that? Like what is it, but why would it bother me so much? Those are more interesting questions to me. The thing that I resonate with in realization is that everybody is where they are, and that's fine. And there's not a problem. Everything is in its right place, and everyone is where they are. It's perfect. That's how I see it. Therefore, I don't have a dog in the fight. I have had a dog in the fight before, but that was me sort of being worked out, right? It had nothing to do with them, whatever they are. So here's the great thing about mature spirituality is when you recognize that even all of your againstness is still just about you. Thanks. But let's look at what's going on that level now. I don't know what goes on in all the forms of New Age. And I don't know. I'm kind of ignorant, actually, about a lot of it, to be honest with you. So I'm not going to be an expert. But from what I've seen, is essentially that's a phase that people go through until they're ready for the demolition project, you know, where you don't get to hang your hat on any sense of self, any real sense of self. Like that in mature spirituality, that's over. And in mature spirituality, it's a process of seeing that you're not any of that, that you probably previously thought you were. And a lot of the things that you believed in at certain levels are not real. They're not any more real than Santa Claus. But when you're at that level, you don't need to be calling those things Santa Claus because when I was in the 12 step program and other forms of spirituality, the beliefs and the concepts were just right for where I was. I didn't need to know that there was no self. I didn't need to at that stage because I wasn't ready. We all become ready at a certain point to leave the our place at whatever table we're sitting at in spirituality where we have made a sense of self out of it. You know, we're in some program, some tradition, some community, and we've built up this mental and emotional garb, constructs, very elaborate sometimes, very elaborate concept about spirituality. And I feel like that's just how we stay busy because we're not ready to deal with our pain. This is what mature spirituality is about, is dealing with the suffering, not recreating it through imagining things that aren't there anymore. Think about that. That's a harsh reality to wake up to, is that most of your spirituality is just made up in your mind. Wow, that blows some people away. I was working with someone and they said, I spent so many years on this devotion path and believing it and following it. And all of a sudden, because I started to inquire, I realized it was nothing more than, it's not real, he said. That can shake your foundations. And so you want to be careful. Like before you should even be listening to a video like this, you should already be ready to deconstruct a lot of that. And I wouldn't be sending people to these kinds of videos if they are nestled comfortably in their belief systems, spiritual programs, because they may not be ready for this. And they're just going to get mad. They're going to get angry because this is threatening. Through the years, as I've traversed through those areas, see if you notice this too. This is a real tricky thing about consciousness. When you come out of something, let's say you're involved in a cult like setting or a 12 step or some new age enlightenment over here, and you step out of that, and for a while you'll shadow box, right? I did that with the 12 step program, and I actually recognized that I was doing it and I let it take me deeper. But in coming out of that community and letting go of a lot of the stuff there that's being believed, which didn't feel true anymore, I had to do a little bit of shadow boxing. Like, that program is not, you know what I mean, a little bit of againstness in order to find my way, so to speak, to let go of that and to not fall prey to those belief systems anymore and to step into something for me that was more authentic and mature, which is this stuff ain't real. It's not real. And so stepping out of it, recognizing that I'm boxing it for the purpose of transcendence. That's what we do. Is that sometimes we have to, like, if you ever leave a cult, excuse me, a cult or even a program that's not cult like, notice what your mind has to do is like distance from it. They're doing this, they're lost. Just don't get lost in that. Just recognize that's just part of the growing, the awakening processes. You're transcending something, you're moving beyond something. But if you're not careful to include it, the againstness will not work for you in the end. Being against. Transcend and include means you don't have a fight with that anymore. Like whatever you left, you're not spending your entire life fighting that because that can be your next ego place right there. is once you were in this program or whatever, believing all of that, now you're stepped out of it and you're caught in the shadow stage where you're against it. And your againstness just gives you more stuff to identify with, is all. So, what happens when you give up your fight against all the other things out there? Then you have to deal with your pain, like directly. And what I came to find out is a lot of the belief systems and the spiritual programs that I was believing in served a purpose at that stage of my life, which was I just wasn't ready to deal with the real suffering of Scott. I didn't know how to, and I wasn't ready. So, what I needed was a certain kind of spirituality that coddled me. And I don't even mean this as in a derogatory way, but certain spiritual programs and beliefs are very coddling in nature. Like they give you this vision of something in your mind that gives you nice, warm, fuzzy feelings or makes you feel good. Like literally, the belief system is like a drug. And it's easy to get stuck there because it's producing positive byproducts. Even if it could just be approval. That's a positive byproduct to the ego. It's like you get into a group and then you start believing what they believe and you start repeating it, and they all look at you like, yes, you get it. You're one of us. And right there, the ego, because it has a need to belong, a need to find love and attention because maybe it didn't get that from mom and dad, boom, you get it right there. And it can be hard to extract yourself from that because you're getting something from it and it gets reinforced. I can't read what's being written there. My eyesight's too bad. So I'll come back to that. But just watching this process through the years has helped me. It's helped me not get stuck. And that's what I'm saying is like just notice that in your life you're transcending things. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe your spirituality was this. And then a few years later, it just went into something else, something deeper where you let go of that. And that's been a process for us of these paradigms, these belief systems, these programs, they serve us well. There's no reason to be against them. They serve us well, and then we move on. But as we move on, how we move on is important. Transcend and include. Don't be against that forever because that's just your own suffering and that becomes the ego's next hiding place. There's a process where you have to let go of something. But if you spend all of your energy still attacking that or beating that down, we've got to move on, don't we? Moving on, there was for a while I was doing that with the 12-step program because I needed to differentiate what we were creating over here, a new model of recovery. So there's a little bit of againstness, to be honest with you. In the end, that all settled out because that was the transcend and include. Include means there's nothing wrong with that, actually. That is exactly right for that level of consciousness. It's fine, but it's just one stepping stone, like along the way, is all. And seeing it clearly that way, then it's like there's no problem with that. And as you can see, then it's almost like a conveyor belt, right? So we land here in spirituality, believing this or that, new age concepts, whatever. And that's where we're at. And we can't go deeper than that until we can. But when we do, it's like we go into a deeper or more mature spirituality and we leave behind the old way. And what we're doing is we're being lifted up into direct experience. So that's where it comes to in the end is direct experience. And there's a big shift there because before direct experience, we're relying on belief systems and programs, ideas and concepts, identified with those, right? So the movement into mature spirituality is where we start to deconstruct those because we recognize that is the ego. Our spiritual beliefs are the nature of our ego at that stage. And the story just has changed its content, but it's not unlike the story of any other story of self. It's a bunch of concepts that the me gets something out of. Stay safe, feel secure, protect oneself, get love and approval, feel like you know something when in reality we don't. It gives us something. But as you move out, you recognize that the beliefs ultimately are a source of suffering. That's when you'll start to move out of it, when you recognize the beliefs and the programs are really a source of suffering. Even though you're getting, for example, approval or something out of it, there's something there that is not working. And you start to recognize it's like, I don't want my spirituality to just be a bunch of beliefs until I die. Is there something more than that? Something more than just believing the next great program, the next great rhetoric. And then you take that step from belief land to direct experience. Resting as awareness. And then what you find out, this is interesting, then you start to see things more clearly because you recognize that the reason that you were believing in all that stuff was to protect yourself from feeling what's really going on here, to being in your body, direct experience, trusting what arises. Another aspect of that is just self trust because when you believe in a lot of beliefs in some program and you're getting approval from that, you're giving your power away. You're not trusting your direct experience and you're giving it away and you're putting all your power, everything in your belief systems or in other people to a teacher, for example, or a sponsor or something. You give your power away. You give your power away over to beliefs. Like instead of being in reality, I want to be in this belief, give my power away. Mature spirituality is when you stop giving your power away too. You just stop. You realize that's disempowering to literally give my power away to some belief system that just makes me feel safe. That's all that it really does. Gives me approval. Becoming empowered to trust yourself and your own experience is the stepping into direct experience where you literally stand as awareness and see that your belief systems are just that. And you begin deconstructing them and trusting your own direct experience. And as that starts to happen, though, you'll start to see that really the stuff that you were involved in is illusory. There's a real wake up that happens when people see that the stuff that they used to believe was just belief land. It's just all it was is programming. And there can be at this stage a bit of a dark night or at the very least frustration, and in some cases deep suffering because it's like I don't everything that used to give me something is not working anymore. I can't get anything out of the belief systems anymore and the stories. I don't get anything. It's like I don't want approval, even if I can get it. I don't want it. You start to wake up. And then what is it to stand in your own experience completely? Then trusting what arises completely. Once you start trusting what arises and being with that from awareness, there's just no room for beliefs and programs anymore because you start to see exactly what they were doing for you. They're a poor substitute for actual recognition. But but that's okay because you don't know that when you believe it. It's not a poor substitute when you're in it and believing it. It's your reality, and that's fine. But you'll finally recognize that it's it's a poor substitute for direct experience, for direct recognition. And I think people are surprised at that stage to recognize that all this time, spirituality was being built through the forms, identified with the forms, the garb, the beliefs, the ideas, the concepts, when the true spirituality is just the awakeness that's here, the spirit that's awake here now. Some people discover that and they're completely let down. It's like, well, but what's here for me? Nothing. Nothing is here for you. And that's the freedom. Because at a certain point in the direct experience, you don't feel like you have to hang on to anything anymore. And you recognize that hanging on to anything is suffering. So there's nothing here for you. That's exhilarating, actually, to finally realize there's nothing here for you. And then just to see where you're still holding on to this concept over here, still holding on to this little belief over here. Oops, sorry, guys. That's my message. That it's time to end the video because I have to go well, I don't know if I have to go somewhere, so I'll stay here for a second. And then let me just round this out. Many of you are in this place of mature spirituality where you're seeing a lot of your own paradigms and beliefs fall away and crumble. But this is the place where the waking up happens, isn't it? This is it. As you look back, you can recognize when you were involved in this program or that belief system, there was no way that you could actually have a true spiritual awakening because you still believed all that stuff. And that was a poor substitute for the direct experience. Now there's no substitute. It's just direct awakeness here, now, simple. That is the spirit that you were looking for. All that time you were looking for spirituality. It is what's looking. It isn't what you're looking at. It is not what you're believing in. It's not the program that you're running today. It's the directness that's looking now. It's the awakeness that's here now, literally right now, looking at the screen. That's the spirit. You see how there's nothing to hold on to in that? And that all your life you were avoiding this, in a sense. Avoiding being here now, being awake now. There's no other place to go from there. This is the end of this is the end of it all. This is where you'll be living for the rest of your life. Living from this recognition, awake now. That's where it all leads. So if your consciousness right now says, I don't know what you're talking about, Scott, it's because there's just something out there that you're holding on to, a belief, a story, a program that doesn't allow you to be awake to this now, to literally be awake to recognize what I'm referring to. So just look at those areas if you're ready. Look at those areas that keep you from just simply recognizing the awakeness. That's your work right there. Now you can stay in those for a while. You can totally stay in that for a while. You can stay in there as long as you want. But after a while, once there's more direct experience, more presence, that's going to not serve you at a certain point. Enjoy it while it does. But there will come a point when that's not going to serve you, whatever it is you're believing in. And when you deconstruct that, there's going to be more recognition of what I'm saying. It's just the awareness that's here now. That's it. That's the end point. But only when you're ready. So as you look back now, this can help you with you being against the new age. This is where the question came from. People being against, like, what are those new age people doing? Oh, that's such bullshit. Or what are these people doing? That's still part of your belief system that's being against them. They're still working things out. When you can stand in awareness and you don't really have any enemies like that. You don't like, I don't have any enemies in Christianity, dogmatic Christianity. I don't have any. That's where they're at. That's fine. Whenever I have an enemy, some other program belief system, that's just taking up space. That's just either part of my growing pains, like the waking up process, where I have to do that for a while. But if I stay in that, that's an avoidance. moving beyond all that, transcending all that, let everyone be as they are. Your only job is your own waking up. That's all. Just waking up from what you believe, and you don't really have to be concerned with what anyone else is doing. That is clarity, and that's love too. There you go.